My goal with my content is to get entrepreneurs and restaurant owners to understand that ABR is more than an acronym. It's a lifestyle. Attract, build, retain is what we need to wake up thinking about daily. We have to believe our message is important to the masses, and creating lasting relationships with our customers is paramount.
I'm done traveling. This made this easy because hell, I can pop up here on a Thursday. We'll be back home tonight by 5 o'clock. Left last night at 9:30, so it's not really going to impact my flow of work for the week.
Traveling without traveling.
Traveling without traveling. That should be like a podcast. How about that skyline, Max?
Good.
It's 3 skylines in 12 hours.
Yeah.
Because last night we left Cincinnati at like 9:30.
Yeah.
So 9:30, we went through downtown Cincinnati around 10-ish. We went through Columbus around, I guess, got into Columbus late last night, but then went through it again this morning, and here we are in Cleveland. That's what I love about the Midwest, where we live at, is you can be anywhere in about 4 to 8 hours. You know, if we lived in Florida, which I wouldn't mind living in Florida from a weather standpoint, but if we lived in Florida, you can't be to Michigan, or you can't be to Cleveland in a drop of a hat. Where we're at in northern Kentucky area, you know, I can drive west to St. Louis, I can hit east and head over to the coast, I can go north and come to Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago, I can go south and go to Nashville, Knoxville, Atlanta, Memphis, Chattanooga. It's just pretty cool. There we go, Rocket Fieldhouse. I guess that's where the Cavs play. Cleveland's a cool city though, so we'll be hitting downtown. We're a couple miles away. We're going to a food distribution company, a big player up here in the Cleveland market. We're gonna see their facilities, talk to some of their execs, and then also be on a podcast. So it's Hillcrest Foods. Food distribution company. Yeah, like you've got nationwide, you got the companies like Performance Food Group, US Foods, and Cisco, who are nationwide brands. Hillcrest, if I don't know their exact territory, but they service like a 2 to 3 hour territory up here.
Gotcha.
Around the Cleveland market.
Nice.
And so they're a big player up here, and good guys. Really do some really cool stuff online, which I appreciate, because that's how I found them, was their podcast. Is when we were looking for restaurant podcasts and restaurant books and people that were telling stories online, because we want restaurants to tell their story. And so when I find a brand in the industry like us that's telling the story, it really resonates, and these guys do an amazing job. So I've had David Ross from there on my on the Expert Roundup, not the MPTV, but the Expert Roundup a few times. And he's kept saying, like, you gotta come up, because they do it in person. And I'm like, I'll be up there eventually. And that was when I never made it up, because I was always traveling for our traditional normal stuff. And then when I made the decision that, hey, I'm done traveling, this made this easy, because hell, I could pop up here on a Thursday. We'll be back home tonight by 5 o'clock, left last night at 9:30, so it's not really gonna impact my flow of work for the week.
Traveling without traveling.
Traveling without traveling. That should be like a podcast. I don't know what that is. I guess it must be the lake over there. It looks like an airstrip though. Oh, you know what? I think I landed there. Yeah, we landed there when I worked with the Bengals. We were landing in Cleveland. We were coming to play. I was on the team plane. I don't know if I told you, I traveled with the team. And so we were flying to play the Bengals. And they get on the air, they get on the microphone, and they're like, hey, we've got a quick stop when we land, so brace yourself. And I'm like, I'm sitting behind Carson Palmer, and I'm like, the hell does a quick stop mean? Like you've never heard that, right?
No.
So I'm thinking, what does that mean? It means a quick fucking stop. Like, we literally, the plane lands at this airstrip because it was near the stadium, and we stopped. I hit the seat, Carson Palmer, we all hit our heads on the seat, and we're all like, what the hell? And so then that's when we realized somebody's like, oh, when we land in Cleveland, these planes can land here. They can't take off here when they're full. but they can take off empty because the runway's not long enough.
Yep.
And so when they can land here, so what they did was we landed here,
Then turn left on East
and when they
55th Street.
landed here, they stopped quick because it's a short runway. And with unloading all the people and the luggage, the plane then takes off because it was a chartered Delta flight. The plane then takes off and goes up to the regular Cleveland airport, and that's where we took off from the next day because we would land on a Saturday
Left on East 55th
at
Street.
like 3
Then turn
o'clock.
left on North
And then
Market
we'd have
Road.
all Saturday night, the team would go do their stuff, and then I'd have clients, and we'd go out, to eat, wine, and dine, have fun. And then we'd go to the game, breakfast the next day, game next day, and then about an hour after the game, the team and you would get on the buses, go to the airport. And it was cool because you had a private police escort. They would shut the expressways down.
Really?
So you'd have police cars on every corner, motorcycle, motorcade. And man, that
Turn
must be
left
their
on
building.
North Marginal Road. Then turn right.
That's a ginormous building. Like literally on the water. So we are on a boat.
And we're allergic to spending money. So we're still, it's like 1920s, like we're in the basement of a building, and we're a $450 million company.
And allergic to spending money.
But allergic, like,
Which is great because we're going to talk about hopefully spending money for restaurants because they are allergic to it as well.
correct, and that's what, so we're so dialed in with our customer base because we think like them, and we only deal with local independents, which, like
Only independents?
only independents.
I didn't know that. That's
Yeah,
awesome. That's
yeah.
us.
Yeah, exactly. So and that's why I love your content so much because it resonates, and it's just one of those things where, fuck, Chipotle has a whole floor of people in Chicago that do marketing. Yeah. How do you teach up the local independents so they get better and that they're more successful?
Yep.
It's like, that's not true because he's here in Cleveland.
Well, but I can get up here. Because I get up at 4 a.m. now.
Okay.
And so I've been getting up at 4 a.m. for the last month. And my son, and when I booked this, the lacrosse schedule hadn't come out.
Yeah.
And so my wife sends me, I didn't know lacrosse, this is the first year playing lacrosse. Yeah. I didn't know they had like 500 games. So she sends me the schedule. I'm used to football every Friday night. Yeah, sends me the schedule, and it's like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. I'm like, holy shit. So I see he had a game last night. It's one of my non-negotiables. I don't miss sports.
Okay.
I've missed one game, and I felt like shit when I did it a couple years. It was like this stupid. I'm like, why am I out here in California? I could be at home watching this game. Yeah. And I had my assistant go there with Zoom and broadcast the game, and I couldn't see it good. You couldn't watch. Yeah. And so I go to the games. And so when I booked this, I told Max, I'm like, okay, well, I get up at 4 anyways. We can get up at 4 and drive here. But I'm like, that's not fair to him because he'd be getting up at like 3. Yeah. And so I said, okay, well, last night I'll go lacrosse. It got over like 8:45, 9. Went and ate real quick with the wife and son and a couple of his friends, and then hopped in the car and we drove, like Columbus? Yeah, drove about 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours last night, and then got up this morning at 5 and shot down here. But so we're calling it he films all my behind the scenes stuff, and we're calling the series Traveling Without Traveling. Or Traveling, what would you say, Traveling Without Traveling, because we went to, where were we at 2 days ago, Louisville? They're against you, and today, take this bandage off, we had to have a tourniquet right there. That's my roots, because we always, for 2008 to 2016, every client we worked with, every restaurant was local in Cincinnati. We had Hofbrauhaus Cleveland up here for about 6 months. Okay. Because they had connections with the guys in Pittsburgh, Columbus, and Newport. Okay. And so we did some stuff there, but everybody I knew was always local clients. Yeah. And now we're disconnected from the standpoint that we have, location-wise, probably 400 locations around the country that I don't know most of them. Like I have a call today on the way home with a client that's looking for some advice with one of our account managers. We call them success managers, and I have no clue anybody's restaurant. So I'll get online today and look at his stats, look at everything. My account manager gives me some stuff, and we'll have a conversation and see how we can help.
And then are you tracking, like, when you do that, you have your own KPIs and stuff that you're tracking with that restaurant, so you kind of know like what they're doing?
And we've recently rolled out, so the books that I've written are, the first 2 books are about what we call the acquisition part of what we do. So America's Best Restaurants, we also built it to where it stands for ABR, Attract, Build, Retain, which is my next book. Okay. And our 3 divisions of our company are, we have a team that focuses on attraction. How do we get attention for restaurants? Then we have a second division, how do we use their softwares, whatever tech they have, to build a database.
So you're tech stack agnostic, like you don't care what they're doing.
Yeah, we used to be, my first 2 books were completely around our own system.
Okay.
And what happened was it pigeonholed us. So many restaurants saw us as, we have to use your messenger program. I'm like, well, no, you don't have to. Yeah. I think what you have now sucks.
Correct.
But and ours is the best.
But they know it.
Yeah, exactly. And so we've now changed it this last year to where we actually the build team is now called in the back end our tech team, to where they're now all trained on Toast and, Open Table and whatever this company is using, that, hey, we want to help you acquire people into there. There's a brand we work with we have probably 20% of our clients are franchises, and we're trying to move to where we're completely independent.
Okay.
That's most of my focus, because franchises have become a headache for us because the corporate office ends up hating us because we make them look bad. Because here's, Mellow Mushroom is a good example. We had, I think they're like 50 or 60 restaurants. One guy in Cincinnati, his 2 locations, is credited us. We went to him when the pandemic hit. I created the restaurant marketing bailout, because when we had a boat dealership that crashed in 2008, there was no bailout for us. Bank of the West, our main lender, got $4.3 billion. We got nothing. We went out of business. And so when the pandemic hit, I launched this thing called the restaurant bailout. And I told my sales team, there's 9 people on our team, I said, hey, any restaurant that you've talked to that you think is legit and a good person, we'll do whatever we want for free. We got the money in the bank. The next 90, we thought, it's going to be like a month thing.
Yeah.
Apparently I'm not very good at predicting that shit. But I said, it's going to be a couple months, so let's.
We just flatten the curve. In
2
weeks, it's all be gone.
Yeah.
We're going to be like licking doorknobs.
Yeah, exactly. And so I said, hey, let's do the restaurant marketing bailout. We bought the URL, restaurantmarketingbailout.com, marketed it, signed up like 70 or 80 restaurants right away.
Wow.
Well, Sean Bales to Mellow Mushrooms were on the verge of going out of business, because one of them was next to a soccer complex and a movie theater. That's it for 5 miles.
Yeah.
There's no humans. Like 5 miles might be extreme, but there's nobody there.
Yeah.
So we ended up working with him for free for about 4 months. And then he comes on board as a paying client. He's like, this 100% is the only reason my companies are still open. Corporate office, after about 8 months, sends us a cease and desist letter, real nasty. And I call him, and the lady's a nasty lady to me. Like, I'd love having this on camera, because she was mean as shit. And I'm like, have I done something to make you mad? I've never talked to you before. Yeah. No, but you guys aren't an authorized vendor. I'm like, okay, well, what does it take? Well, we'll have to think about that. I'm like, you've got a franchise that has told you he would be closed if it wasn't for our company. And your response is to call me and be mean as shit and she actually said, because she hadn't gotten a cease and desist to us yet, they had given us a certain letter saying it was coming. And this call I thought was going to be about figuring it out. And she's like, why don't you just go ahead and cancel your services with him? Why would I cancel? They're helping his restaurant. No, they're not. I said, ma'am, I've got a video of Sean talking about it. I've got an email that he copied your CEO on, saying that Matt Plapp's company are the only reason I'm still open and you're getting your royalty fees. And yet your solution is to cancel it. So when that happened, I got off the phone and looked at Doug, my director of sales, said, we're done. I'm done with franchises. If it's a franchisee that's on an island that's in like Rapid Fired Pizzas in Florence, Kentucky, he's the only one for 30 miles. Michael Kastman's like, if we can help him, great. But if I got a corporate office I got to deal with that wants to tell me how to do something they can't do for their own people, done.
And the model is so broken typically.
Yeah.
We know some franchise guys that are really, really good and have small franchises, like 10, 30 years.
Yeah, exactly.
But like those guys, to me, those are still local independents versus the national brands. And at the end of the day, their business is to collect royalties and to sell more franchises, not necessarily make you successful.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we come in and try to help local independents really grow, be successful, and be customers for life. So that's all we care about, because we're just distributing boxes, box in, box out. But we want to sell them. We want them to be successful, and not, sell them our own brand. We want to sell them just whatever they want to buy.
And that's what ultimately we made the decision, because I had a hard time from 08 till 2015. We worked with any type of business. I met with them one-to-one. We had a team of 2 people. Wasn't a big deal. We had at one point 34 clients from 31 industries. It was a nightmare. I got to a point where we had 9 restaurants. And I'm like, man, I like this, because our restaurants were almost, the Hofbrauhaus was, it's a franchise technically, but more independent the way it's operated. And I liked the way it worked. And I'm like, these are people, like we had a car dealership, they had 45 car dealerships. And they were all about selling a car today. If you ain't buying a car today, we're good, next one. And so they didn't appreciate it. They were a great operator, awesome client. But our value proposition has always been gathering data. I've been doing email collection since '99. And so that's always been my thing. You have to own data. When I launched this part of my career in 2008, when the boat dealership went out of business, I launched it right before the dealership went out of business on complete act. I was just burned out. and we were going to sell the company. We were going to wind it down that year. We didn't know financial collapse was coming. Should have saw it coming looking back, but but when I launched my marketing agency, I took my database from when I sold radio advertising for 4 years and reached out to everybody I knew and instantly had 10 clients. And it's like, well, if I didn't have that database, I wouldn't have had it. So we've always been that way. So when we looked at 2015, I remember sitting down with Ashley, who's now my director of operations. When I sat down with her, I said, hey, the best vertical we can play in, her mom's in the restaurant business. Restaurants are fun. I love to eat. Me and my wife hate cooking. So I got enough science experiment to go eat at restaurants. I said, but they also have of anybody we deal with, they have the biggest use of data.
And the worst marketing.
Oh, the worst.
I mean, across the board, it's one thing that.
I think gyms, because I've been involved, and I think we all have an opinion of what we've been involved with. I've been involved in gyms and restaurants, because I owned a gym for 10 years. Gyms are just as bad. I think the gyms are worse because the barrier to entry is nothing. Like the barrier to entry to building this building, you got to be a baller. You've got to have some money. You got to have some debt on the books. The bank's got to love you. You got to have a track record. You got to have cash flow. You got to have apartments and lofts sold and rented. To open a gym in an 800 square foot building, the certification's online. Your mom and dad give you a credit card. You got 10 G's, and you open a gym and you're a shit show. Restaurants, in my mind, are the next step above that, in that you can go into a strip center that was a restaurant 20 times, and that landlord just wants to turn it. Hey, yeah, we can do it right now. You get the equipment's already here. Turn it on. You're opening it up. And so you're right in that manner, but that's the big thing. I looked at it and said, hey, of any people that should appreciate data, it's a restaurant, because Matt Plapp can go back to, I use barley coins as my favorite example in Northern Kentucky, in Walt's Hitching Post. I could eat at that restaurant every week, but I have to be reminded. I'm busy. I drive around places. I don't know if you saw the video I did recently on my car and how I quit eating at barley coins.
You did. Because their only marketing was driving by the sign.
Yeah.
And it goes back to customer behavior too. So we've seen time and time with our local independent restaurants that if they have a construction project on the street, and then now that you've trained that customer to go around them, they're going to lose that sale. So unless they're doing the email list, the SMS, they're using good social media campaigns, they're going to lose that customer because they're losing mind share. They're losing that awareness.
And it's crazy. You wouldn't think that. Like I always talk about it.
Yeah.
But that was literally the first time I had experienced it at that level. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. That's my favorite buffalo wing, my favorite Saratoga chip, their barbecue sauce. I mean, I get the same thing every time I go there. I've been going there since '83.
And you're craving it 7 days later.
Oh yeah.
So you can do it multiple times.
Oh, if they sent me a text, or I don't go there for lunch much. And when Luis on my team comes in town, when David, they want to go to Barley Corns. I don't go there for lunch hardly ever, because it's not top of mind. Now, if they every once in a while sent me a text that said, hey Matt, UK, like this past week, UK's out of the big dance. Who's going to win it now? Click here to tell us on Facebook for a chance to win a $25 gift card. Now I engage a little differently. They're not telling me to come buy food. I'm going to actually do it. And then I'm like, ooh, that sounds good today.